Okay, someone actually has asked me if I actually will comment on actual comic storylines. Okay, I'm a big Green Lantern fan, in case you didn't notice from the Green Lantern stuff pretty much all in the background. So I was a really decent fan when it came to the work that Jeff Johns did. As you know, he left Green Lantern at Volume 5, Issue 20, after the Rise of the Third Army, Wrath of the First Lantern storylines. In fact, all of the books had a change at 21. So I'm going to talk specifically about the Lights Out storyline, which was pretty much issues 24, as well as Green Lantern Annual number 2. Now, very briefly, what Jeff Johns did is he introduced the idea of entities and the different multicolored cores. Essentially, an entity would have been like a mascot for the different cores. You had Parallax, who was the name Hal Jordan took in the late 90s. And that essentially ended up being the cosmic entity related to fear. Ion was willpower, you had Adara for hope, you had the Proselyte, which was like some weird octopus sort of starfish thing, which is for compassion. You had the Butcher, think of a giant bull. You had, Sarah mentioned Adara. You had the Predator, which was an old, I want to say it was Gerard Jones interpretation, but looked kind of like a giant, think like the Blue Eyes White Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh, but make it purple and crystallized. As well as Space and Ephedron, which ended up being the entity they created for the Orange, which is the Greed core, as well as the Trespasser, which is the White Lantern, Orange Life Energy, and then Black Hand was actually the black one, which was the Death. So, for the story arc Lights Out, there's a being known as Relic. Relic is the last surviving creature of a different universe. Hence, he is a relic of that universe. It introduced the idea of lightsmiths in his universe, wielding the emotional spectrum, and that it was finite. Interesting concept. So therefore, when Relic comes over to this side, he ends up realizing that, again, you have all 7 cores operating. So that means that they're pretty much destroying, or they're burning through this finite amount of emotional energy. Once that energy's done, the universe is destroyed. Okay, interesting concept. Pretty much right off the bat, he destroys the Blue Lantern core, and pretty much disseminates the Green Lantern core and destroys their main power battery. So he does a pretty good job in a couple issues making himself seem pretty much undefeatable. So all the different entities make their way to Kyle, making Kyle a super White Lantern again. But he doesn't get all of the entities. Parallax is still with Sinestro. And Parallax cannot break free. Okay? So Relic decides that the only way for him actually to stop the drain of emotional energy is to pierce the source wall. Okay? So the remaining core members, which is pretty much Guy Gardner and the Red Lanterns, the remaining amount of the Green Lanterns, the Compassion Lanterns, the Hope Lantern they kind of just like left behind because he's got no power, and Carol Ferris, the one Star Sapphire they could find to help essentially try to save the universe. So they then more or less realize that everything that touches the source wall becomes stuck in it. They pretty much push Relic into the source wall. And in order for Kyle to make his way through the source wall and back out, destroys all the entities. So you had some of the cores kind of get dropped down a lot. The majority of the members of the Blue Lantern Corps never really got a decent amount of establishment. Their destruction was actually done very well. Destruction of the Green Lantern power battery, again, was handled well, but then pretty much like an issue later, it's rebuilt. So they lost the Green power battery, they lost the planet Oa, the Blues lost their power battery, as well as their home world. But that's okay, because one of the Indigo Lanterns knows how to rebuild central power batteries, rebuilds that, and then puts it on Mogo. So it seemed like this huge status quo changing event that was pretty much threw in this really interesting and intricate villain who got dealt with by pretty much being pushed into a wall and destroyed all of the emotional entities, except for the Parallax. I'll be honest, I do actually miss the work that Johns did on this character. I really do. I think it's a different take on it, and I'll probably ride this out to see what the fallout is from Lights Out and see how that actually affects the groups and the lack of entities and what that ends up doing, and maybe kind of ends with the Blues. But this might be the first time since pretty much Rebirth, that Green Lantern does not seem as appealing to me as it used to be.